greatest fights of all time, in every fight that's ever happened. But you look at those two separately, and you know, it wasn't their night tonight, and it wasn't an exciting fight.
Thought I would win against Anthony, but here I am with a broken jaw, learning the hard way. I'll heal.
What just happened? What you just saw was, yes, Jake Paul finding out there's levels to this game. Yes, Anthony Joshua not having the greatest performance of all time, but him doing exactly what he had to do, what he needed to do for boxing, what he needed to do for himself.
Internet erupted the instant Jake Paul hit the canvas in his long-rumored clash with Anthony Joshua, and attention immediately shifted to Dana White, the UFC president, who has spent years publicly dismissing Paul as a manufactured boxer. Didn't need to throw a single punch to make his point. His reaction said it all, from a knowing smirk to blunt, no-nonsense remarks. Too many observers. White looked vindicated as elite heavyweight power collided head-on with YouTube hype, turning Jake Paul's bravado into a brutal lesson witnessed by millions.
Chopping that calf kick, you know, the whole first round. He couldn't have had a better first round, and then he got caught.
Do you feel it's one of those things where, like, he got caught, or is it one of those things where Hangman age might be catching up to him, he might be slowing down? Which one do you think it could be?
Since Anthony Joshua brutally stopped Jake Paul in the 6th round of their heavyweight showdown, sending Paul to the hospital with a broken jaw and multiple facial fractures, the combat sports world hasn't stopped buzzing. The damage was serious enough that Paul required surgery following the fight, including the insertion of titanium plates and the removal of damaged teeth, underscoring just how violent the encounter became.
For my own credibility, I've got to knock you out, but I've got to try and knock you out where I'm not hurting you as much as what I could if I unleashed. Yeah. And with the punch you said that you landed, it's not his best punch, his most powerful punch, right? Yeah. And he's shattered his jaw in 2 places, right? So Anthony Joshua gets his 70 million, whatever it is. But I think he's sitting there thinking, thank God for that. Thank God. On a human level, I've come out, all right, I've sort of, not reputation, but I haven't hurt him as bad as what I could have.
There should be an awful amount of people breathing a massive sigh of relief. Anybody that put that fight together, athletic commissions, like you said.
It wasn't a fight.
No, it wasn't at all. Like you said, it was a prize fight. It was an event. If Anthony damages him, he's got to live with that for the rest of his life.
Absolutely.
That's a lot of stress to deal with, you know what I mean? So I'm sure he's bleeding the side of relief. The team that have put him in there, that have negotiated that for him, but the authorities that put that on and commissioned it as a proper boxing match, I've no doubt.
Does that go on his... Because
yeah, it's a professional boxing.
Do you know what? If I was Anthony Joshua, I would be saying, I don't want that on my record. But for the credibility of them putting the fight on, they would have said to him, no, we've got to say this. It's been commissioned. It's going to be a proper fight. And yeah, I found it... I love my boxing, but I just find the whole thing really, really unedifying. You said about get followers. You mentioned Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury is nowhere near is his level of getting like a British title fight or whatever. Nowhere near. So it's basically he's like...
Beat Jake Paul.
Well, oh yeah, sorry, yeah, beat Jake Paul. But so
but what I'm saying is that's 100. I stand by that, and I think Tommy would admit that. You know what I mean? To become a British champion is a very prestigious thing to do, and I think he would struggle to do that.
Yeah, but I think when I was reading, he got 5.6 or
medical scans and X-rays later revealed that Paul's jaw had been broken into separate locations, a severe injury often classified as a double fracture. After the fight, Paul reportedly drove himself to the hospital, where doctors confirmed the extent of the damage. Recovery was estimated at 4 to 6 weeks, and Paul later shared images of the scans on social media, confirming the fractures and thanking fans for their support. Dana White had previously labeled the fight a bad idea, arguing from the outset that Paul was outmatched against a decorated former heavyweight champion. Many saw Joshua's knockout as validation of that stance. White even joked that much of the fight's appeal stemmed from fans wanting to see Paul finally get stopped, reinforcing his long-held skepticism about Paul's ceiling in elite boxing.
Oh, Jesus. That's a fucking bad idea. That's a bad idea. But let me tell you what. A lot of people watch that one.
Will you watch it?
Sure. You know what everybody's tuning in for on that one. I think everybody's going to
have since described the entire build-up and aftermath as a real-life Tom and Jerry show, arguing the ending was inevitable from the moment the bout was announced. According to several insiders, Jake Paul spent months playing the loud, cartoonish instigator, while Anthony Joshua remained silent, calculated, and patient like a predator waiting for the moment to strike. Once the bell rang, the comedy evaporated quickly. Joshua's power, timing, and ring intelligence overwhelmed Paul, producing a knockout that shocked casual viewers but hardly surprised seasoned analysts.
Oh man, great performance by Jake, brother.
Come on, bro. You're a fucking legend for that. He has such big balls getting in the ring for that guy, dude. Josh was a monster. He stayed in it the whole time, and I'm really proud of Jake, dude. All my respect to him, bro. I mean, dude, he went 6.5 rounds with Anthony Joshua, one of the best in the world. So I got nothing but respect.
And got up like 2 times.
No, it was sick.
Talk about that. I mean, there's been other heavyweights that have felt that right hand who haven't got up.
Nagano, so many people, bro. The overhand right. Jake's got a tough chin, dude. I think he does whatever he wants after this. He just has such big balls, dude. He had to keep moving. That was the only strategy. People are gonna say he ran around the ring. They don't know. They don't understand fucking boxing.
Showed a ton of heart, right? What's next?
Legendary trainer Teddy Atlas surprised many fans by outlining a hypothetical path for Jake Paul to upset Anthony Joshua, even if it looked unlikely on paper. Atlas emphasized that styles make fights, suggesting Paul could have leaned on youth, foot speed, and constant movement to frustrate Joshua, especially if Joshua's timing or mindset faltered. Atlas envisioned Paul circling, running, using lateral movement, and sneaking in a surprise right hand whenever Joshua overcommitted. Slipping rounds and disrupting rhythm, he argued, could theoretically swing an 8-round fight. It wouldn't be pretty, but Atlas viewed a survival-based, evasive game plan as Paul's only realistic shot at a shocking result.
Let's talk about news that broke out. And it's someone that you've always shown respect to, and I've asked you these questions before about Jake Paul. We had a surprise announcement just the other day about him and Anthony Joshua. What was your reaction when you saw that announcement? It shocked a lot of people in boxing. What did you make of that? Or what do you make
Jake
of that?
hasn't made too many mistakes so far. So it got my attention. It got Teddy's attention. He's been growing. He's been growing in the ring. He's been growing outside the ring. He's been growing in confidence. I think that in the Canelo situation, that didn't happen. He was ready to do that. I think if anything else, if nothing else, he's showing you that he truly is believing in himself. And that, he's been a work in progress. He still is, and he's showing you he's putting his money where his mouth is. Everyone's calling for him to do this, to do that, and he's always had the advantage with guys that weren't real fighters. They were fighters. They were older fighters. They were MMA fighters. They were this. They were that. They were smaller. They were older. Now he's taking a guy that's bigger, older, but bigger. A real can't debate if he's a fighter. 2-time heavyweight champ, coming off, but he's a smart son of a gun. He's a gutsy son of a. I always stood up for him because everyone was saying he was hurting the sport. He wasn't hurting the sport. In some ways, he was bringing interest in a different way to the sport. But
officially promoted as Judgment Day, was scheduled for 8 3-minute rounds in the heavyweight division, with Joshua entering as a heavy favorite due to his experience, 6 feet 6 inches frame, and significant size advantage. Paul weighed roughly 216 pounds, while Joshua came in near 143. After a cautious start, Joshua gradually asserted control. He dropped Paul multiple times in the 5th round, before sealing the fight early in the 6th at 131, landing a crushing right hand that sent Paul to the canvas and forced the referee to step in.
Anthony Joshua. Paul was sturdy for the first couple of rounds, but as the fight went on, the more experienced Joshua began to take control. After continuously connecting in the 5th round, it was only a matter of time before it was over. In the 6th, Joshua went on to knock out Paul with a big right hand. Joshua improves his career record to 29-4 now. Paul loses for the 2nd time in his career to go along with 12.
Former UFC champion Daniel Cormier, who had expressed skepticism before the fight, maintained there was never a realistic chance Jake Paul could defeat Anthony Joshua. Still, he acknowledged Paul's toughness for lasting as long as he did. Cormier noted that Joshua essentially carried Paul into the 6th round, and that the fight was always destined to end with a punch. The gap in skill and power, he explained, made the outcome inevitable. While Paul showed heart by surviving multiple rounds, Joshua eventually landed the clean, fight-ending right hand because the difference between them was simply too great.
some people believe in fairy tales. Whoever believed that Jake Paul was gonna win, that was an absolute fairy tale. I've got a friend in a group message that said, I just put $20 on Jake Paul to win. I was like, bro, you just wasted your money. There was never a world in which Jake Paul was going to beat Anthony Joshua. It was always a matter of how the fight would end. So I watched all the pundits talking about the fight, even Rosendo, my boxing coach. I was like, does Anthony Joshua represent boxing? Everybody from that world felt like Anthony Joshua was representing boxing. And as the fight started to go on, first off, he was representing boxing, so they wanted him to get the job done. All right, first and foremost. You can't lose to a guy that's perceived to be a YouTuber, even though today, Jake Paul is more boxer than YouTuber. I've said this time and time again. When you have resources, when you can spend $1 million a year on training camps, housing, food, coaches, this is not recreational anymore. He's a boxer. He's just not a boxer at that level. I ran into his brother in New York City, and I said to Logan, what parameters are in place, Logan? What safeguards do they have to make sure that Anthony Joshua doesn't hurt your brother? He said there are none. He goes, they're going to just straight fight. So in that regard, you got to give credit